I wanted to ask you about MFD, and basically bands can maybe learn a lesson about persistence, and if you stay on something and don't lose sight of your dream, that you can, get record deals and things can happen. Why don't you talk about how Richard Gibson had come to you with the MFD project, early on in their existence, and they came to work with DSI, and obviously Richard Gibson, who it can be seen in an interview on our YouTube account. Richard came to be a partner in the DSI label and was responsible for, aiding in many of the releases coming out and being part of the business. And why don't you talk about how you first came across Richard, or he came across you, and how those first records came out with the Jeepster and all those fun early songs they had.
Well, Richard was a guy who lived maybe about a mile or two from my house, and he was a young guy into punk rock, hardcore music, and they had their band that they were just starting on, and I'm not even sure if it was called MFD at the time. It might have been called something else, but he started giving me some cassettes, and I think it was probably 3 or 4 cassettes before that I had to reject, basically just saying, I think you just need a little more work on it, just get it together first, and really, if you get a good product, and then you put that thing out, it'll have a lot more impact. And then one day I came home from work, and there's a cassette on they put through the mailbox, and stuck it in the thing, and damn, that was the first LP, and it kicked butt. And I called him right up and said, okay, let's do it, let's get to work. And that was the beginning of the relationship. Now, Richard was very important to DSI over the years, and contributed a whole lot in a lot of ways. And our most successful time, he was a full partner, and we all had separate jobs, and it was a real great thing to be involved with. Like I say, MFD over the years changed, and they worked. I think they were just about as hard working band as any band that was ever on our label, so that's for sure.
John, the Hawaiian music that you're into these days, the slack key guitar, you've talked about doing something that would mix punk and Hawaiian, and I know you've jammed with some Hawaiian players around here in the whole Polynesian music scene. How did you get into that, and what do you see yourself doing with that, and where have you been with it? Because I've heard some details, like you've gone out and jammed with some of these people, but hard for me to keep track on that. So talk about your involvement with that genre.
Well, I haven't played with anybody yet, as far as I've been practicing and learning as I go. Initially, I stumbled upon Hawaiian music at work because I work in a library, and we get lots of new materials in, and we got a record from the guy named Israel Kamakaviva Oli, who is the big guy, Izzy, and we're just like, whoa, look at this guy, like, I think he's like, gonna have a huge voice and stuff, and it turns out he had a real sweet voice, and we put it on, and like everybody's like, wow, that's pretty good, and he's got like, a reggae version of Country Roads, Take Me Home Country Roads, and the Over the Rainbow song that everybody's heard now, over and over, and I don't know, it's just sort of one of those things I, took it home, listened to it, thought it was okay, didn't really make much impact, and I was down at the Outer Banks a few weeks later and heard it on the radio, and was like a live concert on the radio, and was like, whoa, man, I remember that guy, and just it was just sort of an accident, and then I just sort of started listening to the music, and slowly, that was about 4 or 5 years ago, and I've slowly just gotten addicted to it, and listened to all kinds of Hawaiian, Polynesian music from Tonga, and my brothers started at the other end of New Zealand music, so someday I guess we'll end up in the middle together or something, but so we're started at separate ends of the archipelago, and we'll see what happens into that. Yeah, I have got involved in the Hawaiian, like the Hawaiian scene as much as possible, which is kind of hard for a haole, but it's like in DC. But I love it, and it's just one of them things that I can't stop, I guess, and I'm not going to. No matter how much of a freak I am, which it doesn't change much in that respect. But the Hawaiian punk thing now, that's just something that like struck me when I first started listening to this music, that there's a lot of basic progressions in the music, and I started hearing the potential for some really great punk rock songs coming out of here. None of which I'm going to mention at the moment, but because I still have the dream of someday doing that. Now the problem with that is as far as insulting the gods and the people who are, I don't want to get involved in that. So I need to be very careful, and if I ever do this, of how I approach the in a respectful way the powers that be. So we don't want to mess with the powers out there, So don't want the wrath of Pele on us or anything like that. So.
John, your brother Jay has his own record label now, Living Nightingale, and he has just put out an anthology of work that he's done here in Antarctica, New Zealand. It's called J. Fox Shit from an Old Notebook. There's a United Mutation track on there. Is that new material? Or should I say relatively new material? And can the kids that like the crust punk, which you guys are associated with, expect that you and Mike Brown and Jay Fox will work together again when all the stars are aligned?
Well, yeah, we fully intend to do that. That track is called Submarine. It was a song that they wrote down in Antarctica. Very basic track, and unfortunately the integrity of the tracks got lost, so that's all we have right now. There's no way of mixing it, and the bass got destroyed, so it's got this really grungy, like distorted bass thing that it's just really bizarre. And that was done about 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and about 2 or 3 years ago. So that's an actual new track.
So some of the songs are from Antarctica.
Me, Jay, and Mike, yeah.
So some of the tracks were recorded in Antarctica, and more was done up here.
That track was done here in the plains at Mike's house.
And before that, the last session you guys did was basically up at Q back in
the Q song. Yeah.
95. And what was the last show you guys played?
Probably the last show we played would have been at O'Carroll's with either the Suspects or Invaders from Uranus and those guys, and I don't remember exactly.
Bidge was drumming at that time?
Yeah, I think it was Bidge playing drums with us. I know Bidge was our drummer at that time. I know we did a show with Kent Stacks playing drums also.
Right.
Or it might have been with Bidge and Kent Stacks. I don't remember how that exactly worked, but yeah, that would have been the last show, which would have been probably 95 or something like that. So.
John, first punk rock show.
Punk rock show. Probably Slicky Boys or Root Boy Slim, although it wasn't really punk rock, but it was it's hard to say. It would have been one of the early DC or punk rock bands, pre-hardcore. I'm guessing like Slicky Boys, or getting into the real punk rock. Like, the more national would have probably been the Cramps, and then first hardcore show would have like strictly hardcore. Now we've already been playing our own hardcore shows and doing local type stuff, but I think it might have been the Misfits or something like that.
So were you guys playing like basement shows around Northern Virginia? Is that pretty much how that worked out?
Yeah, we started probably about 1980, 81, maybe 81. I guess would have been our first.
These were parties where it would just be you guys playing, right?
Well, I think we did a party in 1980 with me and Jay and Sean Sumner playing drums. He went on to be in Death Piggy, and John Harden, who went by Monk at the time. And that would have been the original, not the original Dark Self-Image, but after Dark Self-Image, with Mike Brown and Bobby Oddie, we sort of split up for a little bit, and then we sort of went more into the hardcore, because Dark Self-Image was more like a Slicky Boys, like somewhere between like Slicky Boys meets Joy Division meets God, I don't even know, Hawkwind maybe or something like that. So, and then we got more into the hardcore thing. Like once we got the Minor Threat 7-inch, and then we would pretty much given up on everything else but hardcore at that point. And so, yeah. Now,
United Mutation is going to be remembered as a hardcore band, but there's been a lot of hippie elements in the DSI label, as well as the music that the Fox brothers have made over the years. Could you maybe elaborate on perception and and what DSI and United Mutation are being remembered for, and any conflicts you might feel about that, or any humor you may find in, perceptions of, obviously you're not covered in tattoos and muscle bound, and there's no X's on the back of your hands, and there's none of the stereotypical things one might expect if they didn't know who this band was or who was running the record label.
Well, maybe because we're hippies, it was like never an issue with us, And since we had fallen for the hippie thing 5 years or so earlier, there was no reason to fall for the hardcore punk rock thing. And hey,